One second. Let me put a marker right there. There we go. All right. Yeah. Anyway, intro's got some flashes to it, so if you're sensitive or prone to that, or what have you, whatever ailment you may have, look away now, and then turn back around when you hear my voice after it. So, anyway, here we go. I present to you Tome 9 Crescendo. Enjoy. Oh, check. There we go. Motion tracking, that was such a fucking hard thing to do there in Vegas. Anyway, there you go. Here we are. I really do need just to make a checklist to make sure everything goes according to plan when doing those. Anyway, here we are. It's both Trickster, Yun-Jin, and the Observer here. So without further ado, here we go. I'm going to also open up some snacks here, so enjoy.
Ji-Woon lives within the sounds of Rio de Janeiro. Water splashes into a basin. A skateboard's wheels grind over asphalt. A rufous-bellied thrush chirps, and the voice. The angelic ethereal sound of a young Brazilian man singing floats from an open window. Ji-Woon knows the man. Lucas. He's good. Nowhere near my level, but a diamond nonetheless. His voice is the brushstroke Ji-Woon has been searching for. To think Lucas practically fell into his lap, the Brazilian man having sung at a recording studio Ji-Woon visited. With Lucas's voice, Ji-Woon can create art. Genuine, agonizing art. Silky, blood-curdling terror. Ji-Woon has already prepared a warehouse at an abandoned harbor for tomorrow's act. Even the most mundane detail required his attention. In the past week, he's transitioned between concert rehearsals to disguising his celebrity visage, staking out his victim, assuming alternate identities, purchasing supplies, and stealing recording equipment. All while paying off his security detail to leave him be. The mundane details are what elevate the splendor of his artwork. Lucas will be dead in a day, and it will be beautiful.
Alright, so, right off the bat, it totally sounded like the narration guy said Bazillion rather than Brazilian. So I'm not sure. I kind of want to hear that again. Hold on. Actually, I'll wait till the end, but... Alright, so we got a little bit of an origin story here. I didn't hear it the second time when I got down here. Create art, yep. Lucas's voice, Ji-Woon can create art. Genuine, agonizing art. Okay.
Ji-Woon freezes as he reaches his hotel room. The door opened a crack. He faintly hears someone rummaging inside. So be it. He knew a crazed fan would take things too far someday. How could they resist him? But he's ready. He'll defend himself, test the invader for operatic sounds like an impromptu aria as he surprises them with a blade in their gut. He pats the knife concealed above his ankle. Ready. Pushes the door open, steps softly on plush carpet, hears the invader around the corner, sees Yun-Jin. his manager. Fury meets fury. How dare you step foot in here? Where the hell have you been? She's paranoid about death threats they've been getting from a fan. When security couldn't locate Ji-woon, she came snooping. It's laughable. The threats were nothing but a ploy, a boogeyman he created to throw Yun off his trail if she ever got too close. But he should have expected this. Yun's on top of everything. It's what he respects in her, what makes them a great team. He brings the million-dollar voice, and she smashes through any problem in their way. Usually it works in his favor. In her hand, she holds... No, damn it. His sampler. It contains his personal project. The screams of his murder victims layered into songs.
What?
It's an early draft, lacking subtlety. The violence and horror a bit too blatant for the faint of heart.
Or, you know, the general public.
Disgusted. Couldn't hear beyond the terrorized voices to understand the beauty inherent in human suffering. The hairs on Ji-woon's neck stand on end. He sees the moment with clear eyes. They're dancing on a razor's edge, with Yun dangerously close to discovering who he truly is.
So he's trying to keep his dark side a secret to her. Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yun holds the sampler as if it's dripping blood.
Yun, okay.
The only solace in Ji-woon's mind is that she doesn't understand what it really is. He knows her. If she thought the sounds were actual murders, she'd have tried to knee him in the crotch and run. But the anger still rattles through her as she moves up to his face. What is this twisted horror bullshit? What if this leaked? You're already attracting crazed, violent fans. How would it look if the media heard the demented sounds you're working on? Mighty One would drop you.
Yeah.
Your career would be dead.
Yeah.
Ji-woon knows what she really fears. Her career would be dead. For as tall as she stands, as strong as she swings, she's nothing but a scared girl, afraid of failure. He knows how to play her. Drops his head, breathes deeply, wipes the back of his hand over his eyes. Yun, ever since the death of No Spin, the fire, I'm riddled with horrid thoughts. I lost my friends and I fear I'm losing my mind. I see awful things behind closed eyes. All that guides me through the dark fog is turning my pain into sound, pouring the throes of death from my heart to a song. Yun's face softens. She sits, commiserates with him. Inside, he's reliving the divine screams of his bandmates as they burned, his swelling heart as they screamed his name. But on his face, he shows nothing but contortions of tragedy.
He's playing you like a fiddle.
She excuses his error in judgment, confiscates the sampler, requests he stay on hotel grounds until the concert is over. It's for his own good, his safety. She tells him to get a drink from the minibar and cool down.
Oh yeah, get him drunk, clearly.
He quietly nods and complies, reminding himself to steal back the sampler in a few days. He lets her pretend she has what he's holding. Control.
Yeah, this is not going to end well.
Despite the stifling humidity, Ji-woon hides under a hoodie, large sunglasses concealing his face. Now's not the time to attract attention from rabid fans. He waits till Yun is in a meeting and strolls out of the hotel, a bag of necessities in hand. It's his show now.
Like a kid sneaking out past
He pulls
curfew.
earbuds from his pocket, allows the music to envelop him. The song How I Became, recorded 6 months ago in Seoul. It stands as a metaphor for his childhood, written one drunken night while looking over old photographs. He is 7 years old. He sits at the back of the class. He's uncomfortable being seen and speaking. But today is different. In a few minutes, he's presenting on his favorite thing. A young boy shows the class his hamster, but Ji-woon doesn't care. He holds his flute, going over the notes to the song he wrote. He shuffles to the front of the class, places his sweaty fingers on the instrument. Following a deep, unsteady breath, he gently blows out a wisp of air, creating a light, whimsical sound. He closes his eyes, moves his fingers precisely, playfully dancing over each note. He ignores the squeaks of the hamster. The flute's sound carries like chimes in the wind. With one final soul-piercing note, he smiles and opens his eyes. His classmates are huddled around the rodent, laughing with its every move, his teacher too. He walks to the group. Students pass the hamster around as it squeaks incessantly. It finds itself directed into Ji-woon's
Oh
palm.
no!
He takes it in both hands. With one steady movement, he squeezes. A squeal, a slight crunch. No more sound. The children scream. Ji-woon feels nothing.
Poor hamster! No! Well, that's very mean.
Storm clouds overtake the sky as the first drops of rain spatter onto Ji-woon's sunglasses. He breathes deeply, prepares for what he's played over in his mind. The anticipation nearly brings him to his knees, the joy of the artistic process. He strides to the rear door of a cheap 1980s sedan, glances both ways, and appraises the few locals walking the street. Certain no one's watching, he jams a straightened coat hanger around the top of the window, pushing it through the other side. His thin fingers work quickly. Prior experience in breaking an entry pays off. He hooks the wire around the door lock and flicks it up. Without missing a beat, he slides inside, closes the door, and flattens himself along the back seat. He takes off his hoodie and sunglasses. From his bag, he pulls out rope, a blade, a dusty rag, and a bottle of chloroform. He waits, takes out his earbuds, listens to a song that's not his own, one he heard long ago. He is 8 years old. He sits on his father's shoulders, looking over a sea of human bodies. An elaborate stage is ahead, illuminated by colored spotlights. A man in gaudy, audacious clothing stands in front of a microphone. On each side is a guitarist. Behind him, a drummer. A crash of sound, beautiful rhythmic music. A voice that twists delicately through the melody. His father shouts something, but he can't hear. Shouts again. "This is what you'll do. This is where your talent will take you."
Okay, now I understand why
he feels a tingle through his spine and sees something incredible. Everyone enraptured, focused intently on the sound of a single man. The emotion of thousands is guided by his voice. He is seen by all. He is loved, and he is wondrous. Ji-woon never played his flute again. He reveled in sounds that reached global audiences, attracted screaming fans, turned men and women into idols. His childhood fear vanished as he learned to divulge himself through the intricacy and pliability of pop, his inner thoughts riding atop sound waves, fusing together with other genres, rock, hip-hop, jazz, punk. It was the music that could deliver him the explosive fame he deserved, a promise that he would never be upstaged. He was no longer confined to his timid shell. He revealed himself through his mastery of music, poured his heart into sound. He became envied, lusted over, and respected for the hits that spilled from his lungs. He takes the earbuds in his hands and smiles. How miraculous that a boy became a god.
First off, how are you gonna kill a hamster and then get to a concert? Like, that's some shoddy parenting. And then when the narrator guy got to the voice of the dad, I was like, oh, okay, well, if he sounds like that, now I understand. Unbelievable. Some soft parents out there. Anyway.
Rain hammers down on the car's roof. Ji-woon checks the time. On any other day, Lucas would be in his car already. He knows this. He's done his homework. But Lucas is late, and Ji-woon wonders if the storm has altered plans. He feels control slipping away, replaced by something else. It pushes against his chest, forces him to gasp for air heavy and sticky in his lungs. Everything's ruined. He claws his nails into the car seat, forces his mouth shut to keep himself from screaming. All the planning for nothing. He doesn't have time before leaving Brazil to find another beautiful voice. Quickly, he needs music, fumbles for his earbuds, drops them to the floor, frantically scours. The only song playing is his teeth audibly grinding. As he prepares to spill into the street, he sees him. Lucas, drenched under the deluge, walks to the driver's side door. Get your shit together. The show's about to begin. Ji-woon grabs Lucas's neck in a chokehold, shoves the chloroform-soaked cloth into his face. The two struggle in a frenzied dance. Lucas twists from side to side, reaching his arms back, grabbing for anything. Ji-woon resists the movement, holding the man in place with all his might. Rain smashes down, muting the battle under the pattering of 100 drops, concealing the outside behind a windshield of streaming water. Lucas grabs a handful of hair and pulls Ji-woon forward, breaking the chokehold. He bites deep into Ji-woon's wrist, drawing blood. Ji-woon screams through gritted teeth, pushing the cloth harder into Lucas's face until he's beating him with it. Lucas flails his other arm in a desperate bid, searching for a solution with no plan. His hand relaxes, releasing Ji-woon's hair. He slumps forward, head hitting the steering wheel, blasting the horn.
Beep.
Ji-woon scurries over the seat, pushes Lucas's limp body to the passenger side. He leans back, takes a moment to catch his breath, looks in the rearview mirror, inspects his face, hair, and through a sheet of rain sees a sight he never expected. Yun's car pulling up behind him.
She's
He
an
grabs
accomplice.
the keys from Lucas's pocket, jams them in the ignition, and slams the accelerator down.
Yeah, watch it turn out to be like... Yeah, Yun's gonna be like, yeah, I know what you're up to. I want to be a part of this. Let me be an accessory to your murders. I don't think that's going to be the case here, though. So, let's keep going. Also, I'm eating, I mentioned this earlier, but I'm eating the Snyder's pretzel pieces, so I apologize if it's, like, super loud. I'm trying to, like, crunch them away from the mic, but... Anyway.
Lucas's limp body jostles back and forth in the passenger seat.
Oh, God.
Street-side shops and graffitied walls are a blur as Ji-woon veers around a corner. Wind and rain lash at the city as if dead set on blowing it apart. Ji-woon loses track of his plan. Usually, he would have Yun fix his problems, but now it's all wrong. He doesn't recognize the streets he's speeding down, only has a vague idea of the direction. Yun remains on his tail. She doesn't know when to quit. The tenacity and courage that proved useful when negotiating his record deal is infuriating now. He's losing control of his artistic process. Hands squeeze the wheel. He'd rip it from the steering column if he could. No, you're not going down like this. You have art to make, damn it. He flicks on the radio. Two men talking about something he doesn't know. Searches the channels. A commercial for a fast food restaurant. Recognizes the jingle. Keeps going. Lands on... There it is. Brazilian dance music. Rapid tempo, heavy bass line, percussive guitar notes, and a smooth voice. He pushes the pedal to the floor, dodges a few kids playing in the storm, bolts past an old pickup truck, praying no one comes the other way, swings the wheel hard to the left, nearly loses control in deep water, but recovers to find himself in a perfect turn. Guns it as the song hits the chorus, trusts in the music, shifts with the tempo, slides with the riffs, feels the beauty in everything he does. Music courses through him. He is living art. He is the crescendo. Behind him, Yun's car comes to a crashing halt. It doesn't matter. The music goes on.
The beat goes on and the beat goes on, Yun-Jin. The entity can't drive 55. Wonder what caused Yoon's car to come to a halt. Did she run out of gas? Did she, like, lose a tire or something? I wonder. Let's keep going.
Ji-woon pulls into the harbor he'd staked out days ago. He reluctantly turns off the radio and scans the area. No sign of Yun behind him, but he's on his guard. Somehow, she knew how to find him. He pulls out his phone, his Mighty One company phone. She's tracking me like an overzealous babysitter. Should have expected this from her. Always a micromanager. But she couldn't have known he was driving the car, only that he was in it. Ji-woon drags out Lucas, barely conscious, and pushes a blade into his back. Before shutting the door, he takes his phone and texts a simple message to Yun. Help. He tosses the device on the car seat along with the rag of chloroform and rope. Needs more evidence. He cuts his palm and presses a bloody hand to the window.
Some Eddie Guerrero lying
with a thrust of his blade, he pushes Lucas forward. Thunder shakes the frame of the abandoned warehouse. Lucas sits in front of Ji-woon, bound to a chair, ready to be slaughtered, to sing.
How's he still alive?
Ji-woon pulls out his blade, but hesitates. Something's wrong. He was too messy getting here. He wants to dive into his art, let the blood spill, but Yun threw him off his game. He can't shake the feeling. He knows she doesn't give up easily, or at all. Walks over to a window and looks out. Endless rain, lightning, and there, like a drowned rat skulking through sewage, Yun. So damn persistent. And further back, the flashing lights of a police car. Yun stumbled into a bloody game and has the power to end him in one move. He rummages through his pockets for his earbuds. Can't find them. Can't focus. Feels the plan slipping away. Sees an end to his art. The music cut short. His vision incomplete. No, he can't let it end. He hears the music. It's always been there, sitting on his father's shoulders, washing over him. He inhales it. It circulates through his veins, becomes him. He'll never go back to being the boy he once was. He's an idol. He's a god. He's the trickster. And he has one last trick to play.
I'm hoping it's the warehouse scene here. All right, here we go. What a climactic finale here. Oh. What is that outfit he's wearing? All right. I don't know what the plan there was. Oh. That was loud. Totally Eddie Guerrero, yeah. And then the blood splatter from Lucas is all over Trickster, and that explains that. Okay. Viva la raza! Exactly. Exactly. So that's why he unroped him and... Gotcha. I didn't know Lucas would have the strength to fucking just, you know, waylay some haymakers on the Trickster there, which, I mean, you know, judging from what they were talking about with the car ride over there. Also, why is she wearing the ugly outfit in the, well, I guess because they're in Brazil. They're, like, wearing, like, horrible tourist outfits and things like that. So that also explains why the outfit from the Rift is so ugly. So, if that's from the Trickster, I wonder if Yun-Jin here will pick up from where it leaves off. Let's see.
Fatigued from the long flight, Yun-Jin yawns as she turns on her laptop.
Sorry.
She landed in Rio de Janeiro just 2 hours ago, but her work cannot wait. Looking through her mailbox, she spots a dozen unread emails from an unknown user addressing her by name. Few know her as Yun-Jin. Most only know her as Magnum Opus. She clicks
Really?
on an email. A graphic, detailed description of someone's plan to murder her and the Trickster. Signed, the Trickster's #1 fan. Death threat. An abnormally specific one with a picture of her in the hotel lobby. Before the death of No Spin, she ignored such threats, but now, her manicured hand shakes as she reaches for her phone. The threat is too serious to be taken lightly. She calls her security crew for an emergency meeting.
Yeah.
Outings are restricted to recording sessions and concert rehearsals only. A bodyguard is assigned to the Trickster and herself. Everyone complies with the new rules except for the Trickster,
Shocker.
who argues against staying on the hotel premises. No surprises there. Her relationship with the Trickster has been on the rocks for months now. He challenges every decision she makes, his ego pushing her patience to its limit. Because of their frequent creative disagreements, their next album is behind schedule, forcing her to produce 3 new songs while overseeing his tour. Her security expert confirms that the phones are ready. At her request, a tracking GPS application was installed on all company phones. No one else knows about this. If the Trickster keeps testing her patience, this app will come in handy. It's for his own good, and hers.
Huh. Okay. Hold on, real quick, before we continue, let me see what the memory numbers were here. So that's 435, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40, 142, okay. Oh, this is 443, interesting. So it's going in order, okay. Because usually they jump around with the stories and whatnot, so...
Fatigued,
Continue onward.
Yun-Jin pours herself a cup of coffee at the recording studio, stifling another yawn. Her temples are throbbing. The jet lag is hitting her hard. Plus, the constant threat of a crazed fan prevents her from getting any sleep at night.
I imagine.
On her way back to the booth, she notices that the studio next to theirs is occupied. She peeks inside. A young man is laughing in the recording booth. He has an easygoing smile that could sell thousands of magazines. She recognizes the man at the mix table, Alano Muse, a semi-famous producer from San Diego. What is he doing in Rio?
He's the
Some
crazed
bits of
fan!
fresh gossip could help re-energize her. She taps on the door's window. The door creaks open. He remembers her, of course. Who could forget the magnum opus?
God.
She invites herself in as he plays the track he is working on. A slow, predictable build for the bass line. Formulaic, too safe to be of any interest. Then, an ethereal voice fills the room. Yun-Jin almost spills her coffee. The artist's voice is crystalline. His range is powerful, yet nuanced. Who is that?
It's me, Austin!
Alano tells
It was
Lucas,
me.
the
No, I'm
young
just kidding.
artist,
Sorry.
to drop down his
Just to keep
pitch a
the
notch.
wrestling theme going.
Bad call. The track should be building up to push Lucas's range instead of confining it to a boring, generic sound. She walks up to Lucas and hands him her business card. Contact me when you're ready to become a serious artist. A pang of regret hits her on her way out. She said those exact words to the Trickster many years ago. Back then, she looked forward to working with him. Those days are long gone.
So I'm guessing this is also... So if Lucas is still alive... So I'm guessing this is probably happening from her perspective. Well, yeah. I guess that would make sense here. I guess we'll kind of figure out like how she knew where Trickster was in the car there and things like that. Also, what kind of a fucking alias name is Magnum Opus? Like, come on. Like, that's almost as bad as like Deep Throat. Like, come on. What are we doing here? Alright, anyway, we continue. Proceed.
At the hotel bar, Yun-Jin takes a sip of her cold caipirinha, the sugarcane liquor smoothing the sour burst of lime. Why did she give that young artist Lucas her business card? It's not like she can produce him. Another pang
No,
of
that
nostalgia.
attitude.
Another sip of caipirinha. She misses it, hunting new talents, the raw creative chaos of designing a bold sound, the adrenaline rush of the first album. Things are different now. Her time is split between handling the trickster's growing ego and following a generic, endless production cycle. Is this the cost of success?
Yes.
Producing music that makes her cringe.
Yes.
Not to mention handling arguments about bodyguards and curfews while being threatened by a crazed, psychotic fan.
Also yes.
Her life is so different from what she imagined as a little girl.
Tell me about
Back
it.
then, music was the only good thing she had. She created tracks in her bedroom,
Aw.
imagining a stage of bright lights where she was safe, loud, and free. That is what pop music is to her, a vital dose of unapologetic release. Now,
It's a stretch.
thanks to her success, she lives in a golden cage. Down goes the caipirinha. The bartender gives her a glance and she nods. Keep them coming. She calls Mighty One executives for a virtual meeting and gives them the news. Once she finishes the 3 tracks in Rio, she is done with the trickster. She will move on to producing the launch of Trainees. A Mighty One executive cuts her off. They have more urgent business to discuss. Damaging rumors are trending online. A disturbed, delusional fan claims to have murdered someone at a trickster concert.
Uh-oh.
Yun-Jin closes her fists, her long manicured nails digging into her palms. Anything to keep her hands from shaking again.
Wonder if this was written
She
before
will
the Travis
handle
Scott
this
debacle.
mediatic storm for her brand's sake. But after Rio, she is done with the trickster, whether Mighty One is willing or not.
Interesting. Like having Biggest Dickus as a stage name. Yes. Let's see. So she's like got 1 foot out the door here, basically. Damaging rumors are trending online. Yeah, wow. Okay. Let's keep going.
Online, rumors about the murder are trending. An anonymous post claims that the victim was last seen alive at the Trickster's VIP meetup after his concert in New York early this year. Yun-Jin remembers that night, not because of the concert, but because of a detail that has been replaying in her mind ever since. Bleeding scratch marks on the Trickster's forearms when he showed up at the concert's after-party. The rumors online were rekindling the suspicion she silenced before. Years ago, the Trickster and she arrived in Miami several days earlier than planned. Yun-Jin attended networking events while the Trickster rehearsed. 3 days following their arrival, a folk singer was found dead downtown near the bar where he performed. A security footage was released to the public, showing a man dressed in black, with his face covered, leading the singer down an alley. The dark, blurry footage revealed little about the suspect, but Yun-Jin noticed a detail that twisted her stomach in knots. She recognized the gold-rimmed headphones around the suspect's neck, with 2 large X's, 1 for each ear.
Oh my god, it was
the
Lucio!
brand new model of the xSmootx-TTV 1050X headphones, which few audiophiles knew about, and even fewer could afford. She recognized the model right away, because the Trickster favored their equipment over other expensive models.
Wouldn't that be some crossover
He wore a
shit?
similar pair on the plane to Miami, but then switched to a lesser model for the rest of the tour, which only fueled her doubts. Back then, however, she was not in a good place.
No, tell me about it.
The death of No Spin was still fresh. Acute insomnia kept her mind in a haze, and the jet lag of the tour only worsened her state. In the end, she decided to let the police do their job and focus on hers, producing music. But now someone else was dead. Someone whom the Trickster might have been the last one to see alive. The headphones,
She's adding
the
it up
scratch
here.
marks, and the late night outs were details, but they added up.
Yeah.
How many coincidences does it take to know?
There's no such thing as a coincidence.
A knock on the door makes her jump. The head of security is here. Yun-Jin follows her gut. She confronts him. She bluffs about firing the whole security crew if he does not come clean. It pays off. She learns that the trickster left the hotel premises last night.
Oh, here we
His
go.
bodyguard tried to follow, but lost him on the way. Yun-Jin pounds her fist on the table. Why would he leave the hotel? To go where? And to do what? Despite working with the trickster for years, he is still no more than a stranger. While he generates incredible profit, it comes at a cost. If the trickster is linked to a murder, so is she. Even if there is no evidence, even if it's just rumors, it's her life on the line, her entire career.
Yeah.
She could never produce music again, and the worst part is, it's her own fault. She knows better than to trust someone in this industry.
Don't trust anybody.
She needs to get answers before it is too late. Whatever the trickster is doing at night, she must find out. Her doubts won't be quieted until she knows for certain.
I just have a vision of her just like, get me pictures of Spider-Man. You know, when they mentioned her fist pounding the table. I mean, that's kind of a loose link to be assuming that you'd be linked to a murder like that, but I mean, unless you're like, you have like physical evidence that connects back to you, I don't think they would be like, hey, you're his business manager, therefore you're guilty by association. But who knows? Let's keep going.
Yun-Jin leaves her security detail behind during the trickster's rehearsal. What she is up to is not strictly legal, after all. She shows her VIP badge at the doorman and enters the trickster's changing room. Perhaps she could find something in here that could be a clue as to what the trickster is up to. Amidst the flamboyant costume, she looks for a clue. Receipts, notes, pictures. All she finds is a gym bag. Inside lies a water bottle, a few t-shirts, and his wallet. No bills or anything of interest in his wallet, except for his hotel room keycard. Perhaps she is looking in the wrong place. Someone chatting loudly on the side of the door alerts her. She snatches the hotel keycard and zips up the bag just as the trickster's assistant walks in. Yun-Jin quells her thudding heart and keeps her expression impassive as she walks out. Whatever the assistant saw, she will not dare mention it, at least not to anyone who matters. Yun-Jin only pauses when she reaches the trickster's hotel room, keycard in hand. If she does this, there is no turning back. Yet if the trickster is hiding something, she needs to know what it is, before everyone else does, before it ruins her life. There can be no doubts. Yun-Jin pushes the door open. The trickster's room is tidy, almost as if he barely spends time here.
He's cleanliness.
She goes through
How
his
scary!
luggage, a pile of odd clothes, all black hoodies and sweatpants, a black face mask, clothes she's never seen him wear on tour.
Oh my god, Trickster's secretly Legion!
Room service. Yun-Jin drops the face mask. Come back later. She finds nothing odd in the room, except for a rare top-of-the-line sampler on his bedside table. Intrigued, she presses play. A series of loud, violent screams fill the room. The screeches sound genuine. Samples from a horror film? Yet she cannot fully shake her initial disturbing thought. What if it is genuine? What she finds next only enhances her discomfort. A sharpening kit for knives, whetstones and cleaning products, a whole collection of sharpeners.
I don't think that's
the right. A past conversation overheard at the
whetstone
recording studio replays in her mind. Lucas, the young artist, introducing himself to the trickster, asking about the flamboyant knife in his hands. The trickster replying that he always keeps a blade on him. Yun-Jin picks up a whetstone, Why sharpen a stage prop? Sure, the trickster used real knives to do stunt work as a kid, but it is no longer necessary. This obsession with knives is not just for show. And what is the point of sharpening a knife if it's not to use it? She shudders. Another noise at the door. Yun-Jin puts down the whetstone. I said, come back, The trickster walks into the room, catching her off guard. Her eyes meet his. He is just the awkward kid I signed years ago. I will not let him drag me down. His outrage meets her fury. Yun-Jin picks up the sampler. Where the hell do you wander off at night? And what is this twisted horror bullshit? What if the media got a hold of it? Your career would be over. Trickster sighs and admits that after the death of No Spin, his mind drifted to a dark place. He rarely talks about their death, and she can tell why. That day still haunts her dreams. Time passes, but guilt remains. Yun-Jin spots his phone on the table. Grab a drink from the minibar, Trickster. Today's rehearsal is cancelled. She keeps the sampler and reminds him to stay on hotel grounds until the concert.
What the fuck?
He nods in agreement. Good. For her ploy to work, he must think she trusts him.
Alright. If you're rummaging through his shit, and you suspect that he might be some, like, murderous, you know, psychopath, which he is, why would you get him drunk? Why would you suggest, like, hey, go down to the minibar, get you some drinks, get all loosey-goosey? That doesn't... Get drunk trickster, whoop, yeah. Isn't the record industry notoriously protective of murderous producers, e.g. Phil Spector? Well, you got a point there, I guess. I mean, I can't defend that. Let me make sure that this is right, what I think it is here. I think they typed in the wrong whetstone. Yeah. Usually... Well, actually, I guess either one. Let me see here. Hold on. Here we go. Real fast. Here's a brief aside. Any stone that is used to sharpen an edge becomes a whetstone, whether it be natural, artificial, lubricated by oil or water, or used dry or wet. A whetstone is not really a stone, just a misspelled whetstone. And a whetstone can be a Japanese water stone or a pebble skimming across a lake. So there you go. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, they typed that incorrectly. They meant the W-H-E-T stone. Anyway. I saw that. Anyway, just a quick clarification on that as well. I saw that and I was like, ugh. Why would you murder it with an easily traced blade? That's also true. And including, like, just speeding down roads in the rain. You know, you're bound to attract the attention of, like, somebody, you know? And yeah, like, no gloves or anything like that. Like, forensic evidence could easily trace you to the whereabouts of, you know, what you were doing. That's a very good point, Fizz. I agree. Let's see here. Hold on. Did he really just, like, was just cool with, like, whatever she was doing in there? They still wants her dreams. Time. Okay. Yep. Cool. So he's just cool with her. Okay. Whatever. Moving on.
Yun-Jin looks out from her hotel room.
Oh, this is a long one.
Outside, the downpour is relentless, causing flash floods in parts of the city. She calls her staff. No matter how bad the storm is, the show must go on. Yet the weather is not to blame for the growing apprehension in the pit of her stomach. There is something off about the trickster, a hunch she can no longer ignore, no matter how profitable he is. While he might seem sincere, years in the business have taught her that she cannot trust anyone.
Don't trust anybody.
Yun-Jin grabs her phone and activates the GPS tracker on the trickster's company phone. His location appears as a blue dot on the huge map of Rio. Her gut feeling is right. He is no longer on the hotel premises. The chase is on. Time to teach the trickster a new trick. Yun-Jin slows down near Trickster's location.
Okay,
As
so
she
this
approaches,
isn't
a
coinciding
gray
with
sedan
the previous
suddenly
story.
speeds off. She checks her phone. The blue dot is getting farther away on the map. Trickster must be in the car that just took off. Yun-Jin stomps on the accelerator and speeds off. After a few turns, she catches up with the sedan, which makes a sharp right. Yun-Jin follows, yanking the steering wheel while stomping on the brakes. Her car drifts into the turn, gliding towards a wretched narrow alley. The sedan accelerates and swerves left, entering a narrow street. Yun-Jin repeats her maneuver and drifts left, but the wheels hydroplane on the puddle dashboard.
Finally, somebody
and the car
hydroplanes.
spirals out of control. A thundering crash! Yun-Jin's head is propelled onto the steering wheel.
Ooh.
A flash of white light, then a burning pain follows, coursing down her body from her neck to her lower back.
Damn, girl.
Yun-Jin coughs and gasps at the pain. For a moment, all she can do is breathe. When she exhales, the pain lessens slightly. Loud rock is blaring on the radio. It's so loud. She reaches forward and turns
Detroit
it
Rock
off
City.
absent-mindedly. A spot above her left brow is burning. She touches her forehead softly and winces. A drop of blood drips down her finger. The windshield is cracked on the passenger side. Yun-Jin moves slowly, carefully leaning over. It's okay. Everything is okay. I'm okay.
You just have
She
whiplash
looks out. The
and a
car
mild
crashed
concussion.
into a
Shake
street
it off.
lamp on the passenger side. This could have been much worse. A familiar ding interrupts her thoughts. Her phone. Yun-Jin slowly leans forward, her hand searching under the seat. She grabs her phone and unlocks the screen. A text message from the trickster. Help. Why would he ask for her help?
Because it's a
Unless she
trap.
missed something. Unless the trickster is not the one she is chasing. Yun-Jin's heart skips a beat. The death threat. The trickster's #1 fan. Perhaps the crazed fan found out about the trickster's nightly escapades and decided to strike. Kidnappings go hand in hand with death threats after all. She lets out a curse. In her rush to chase the trickster, she left her bodyguard behind. If anything happens to the trickster Ji-woon and she was too blind to stop it. No, she has enough guilt on her conscience already. Yun-Jin readjusts her seatbelt. She turns on the ignition and the engine coughs in response. She grits her teeth and tries again. It won't be like the fire. I won't give up on him.
Oh, you
She
poor
turns on
dumb
the ignition
son
again.
of a bitch.
And again. On the third try, the engine revs back to life. She puts her phone back on the dashboard and follows the blue dot.
Oh. Anyway.
Yun-Jin follows the GPS until she reaches a desolate parking lot facing several abandoned warehouses. The blue dot remains immobile. This is it. Ji-woon should be here somewhere. But where? As Yun-Jin steps out of the car, a heavy curtain of rain falls on her sore, shivering body. Daylight is cloaked by dark storm clouds. The parking lot is filled with broken-down cars. Yun-Jin uses her cell phone's flashlight to find the gray sedan. As thunder rumbles, her phone illuminates a bloodied handprint on a car window. She rushes to the door and peeks inside. A sudden blur of motion. She pulls the door open. A rat skitters out of the car. Some items lie on the back seat. Ji-woon's phone. A rag. And some rope. Yun-Jin closes her prickling eyes. She might be too late. There's no time to waste crying. If Ji-woon is still alive, he needs all the help he can get. Yun-Jin grabs her phone and calls the police, then her security crew. Whatever this crazed fan has planned, it ends now.
She has time to call the police and the security. To be like, come to this abandoned warehouse. Located in a plot hole in Rio. Yeah, she's just being led on here, basically. Although, I mean, after reading the first part, we know that now, but... I actually have to say, I got a comment before we go on, that this is probably the first time where they've actually intermingled two stories together. And, I mean, you're getting to see the part from, you know, the killer's perspective, obviously from the trickster, and obviously as well from the survivor side. Both in the same place, relatively speaking, and same course of events. So that's pretty cool, I have to say.
Rumbling thunder. Yun-Jin is staggering through the rain, looking for a clue, a trail. An icy gust lashes her drenched body, but she cannot stop. Not until Ji-woon is safe. A rat skitters over a puddle, upon which lies a white business card. Yun-Jin picks up the blood-stained card.
Oh my
and
god!
reads, Magnum Opus, music producer. It's hers. With a shudder, she realizes she might know the person who kidnapped Ji-woon.
It was me, Yun-Jin, all along.
Police sirens are blaring in the distance, but she cannot tell if they are coming for her or the several people caught in the storm. Yun-Jin shouts Ji-woon's name, yelling in despair over sirens and thunder. Then she hears a scream coming from across the parking lot, where stands an abandoned warehouse. She rushes to the warehouse, reaching its wide doors. A chain is wrapped around the handles, padlocked into place. Meanwhile, police are arriving on the scene. A brutal scream emerges from the warehouse. She cannot afford to wait. What happened to No Spin cannot happen again. Never again. Picking up a lead pipe from the ground, she strikes the padlock again and again. Ji-woon! Ji-woon!
Oh, okay,
the padlock breaks open.
I was gonna say, that's not how you open a lock, but okay. Alright, here we go. So I'm guessing this might take up after the gunshot from the police. We'll see what happens. I'm guessing, because, like, you know, that's why the trickster has all the fucking blood all over, the blood splatter all over his torso. So that kind of makes a little bit of sense there. Anyway. That was a horrible outfit. Oh! Oh, that fucking left a hole right in that guy. Holy shit. Okay, so no blood spatter. But it just proves that they shoot the other guy. Okay. A little bit disappointing. Now she definitely is an accomplice if they ever, you know, revisit that and tie up that loose end. Doesn't necessarily... Well, I guess their backstory kind of tells you how they get into the fog. So, another thing about Yun-Jin, I guess, just judging off of that, she's less of somebody that looks like she's gonna steal your dogs and just seems like rather like a dummy. Because she's like, Trickster seems like he's murdering people, but I can't quite make the physical connection here and add it up correctly. Ugh. What are you gonna do? Alright, and then the last one here is just basically stuff with the Observer. What do we got?
Terra Arachna, day 987.
Oh boy.
Close call today.
Are we doing stuff with spiders now?
The Arachnas while testing multiple versions of the toxin. The doctor saw them coming through the window and ordered me to leave everything behind. She said we would return to the lab when the arachnas were gone, and it was safe again. We still haven't found a toxin deadly enough to eliminate these horrible creatures, but I feel we're close. Very close. If we had a sense of their origins, it would help. As it stands, we still don't know where they came from, or what they want. All we know is the attack started at the same time. What makes our investigation more challenging is the fact that their DNA is unlike anything we've ever encountered.
It's interdimensional DNA.
It's as though they came from another place.
Ah. As the Brave Star cartoon once said, spiders! Spiders everywhere! So this is picking up, I think, what was it, in Tome 8? Where, like... I'm trying to recall off of memory here. Like, somebody ended up dying, and then he causes, like, this weird spider apocalypse to happen, where there's just, like, spiders infiltrating everything. And then that's when we saw the Observer quantum leap himself into this realm, and we saw that one person knock over the tree over and kill it, just basically decapitating a fucking spider, and all these other spiders crawling out. So that's where I'm assuming this is coming from here. Onward.
Terra Arachna, Day 992. Returned to the makeshift lab today and found dozens of people wrapped in silk hanging from the ceiling.
Oh!
Blood dripped in sticky pools right under them.
Get wrecked.
I tried to look away as I grabbed the crate of toxins that we had left behind. But as I carried the crate into the corridor, I couldn't help but notice in the corner of my eye that one of those pods started to move. I forced myself to look and very quickly realized that these pods weren't filled with food, but with something else. It was clear that something was moving and growing inside the cocoon. Something was feeding off the dripping body parts that had been wrapped with it. The groaning creature inside the cocoon struggled to break free, and I instantly rushed out of the lab as fast as my trembling legs could take me. The last thing I wanted was to confront the latest Arachna evolution.
Oh boy.
The Arachnas mutate faster than we kill them, and finding the right toxin is our only chance at survival. Let's hope the doctor and I do so before it's too late.
So that's 992, 987. Okay.
Terra Arachna, Day 998. Dr. Morell and I worked tirelessly for 3 days and found a candidate for mass production. Toxin HJ7 killed 100% of Arachna specimens in less than a minute. 1 dose, and the creatures disintegrated into a thick puddle of bubbling black tar, which very quickly evaporated into a poisonous mist that killed the other Arachnas we held in captivity for our experiments.
Ha!
I think both the doctor and I were shocked and amazed at the result. While it is true that we might not know where these monsters came from, we now have a way to eliminate them. The doctor and I are currently looking for ways to get samples of the toxin to other survivors. The office worker turned cook volunteered, but Dr. Morell chose a few other unlikely candidates. She says it's because he has a track record of messing up his assignments. Personally, I think that's just an excuse, and the truth is, she'll miss his cooking. His pizza. Helps her remember better days before the invasion. Helps us all remember better days, I suppose.
Alright.
Chamber of Blood. The Tale That Follows. Constable Duncan J. Smith said thousands of dogs haunted him wherever he went, but no one else saw them. To get away from the dogs, he would hide in the crawl space underneath his cabin, or he would hide in the shed where he kept his snowmobile, or sometimes he would escape to the glaciers and hide in the ice caves, where he prayed for the howling and the yelping and the whimpering to stop. But the howling and the yelping and the whimpering never stopped, and no matter where he hid, the dogs always found him. The first day Duncan saw the dogs was the day he started questioning his job, or rather, it was the day he started questioning the law and what he was doing with the law. There was something about legally destroying dogs that felt off, that felt wrong. Something that tugged at his heart and wouldn't let go. Something telling him that he needed to get out of the cold, lonely Arctic archipelago before it was too late.
This is a long one. Holy shit.
For Duncan, it was the first time in his career as a police officer that he realized that the law wasn't always the glorified tool for civilization he had imagined it to be. Sometimes the law was something else. Something blunt, something hard, something almost like a gavel.
Oh, you mean a hammer?
A gavel of destruction or oppression.
Yeah, a hammer.
Perhaps both. Destruction and oppression.
Yeah, a hammer.
Truth is, Duncan wasn't sure what he was thinking anymore. He was exhausted, and the dogs, well, the dogs just wouldn't leave him be. And all he wanted to do was return home and farm. He liked working on the farm. Things were simpler on the farm. But here, up north, things were more complicated, and Duncan couldn't help but think about the law. About the gavel. And the last thing Duncan wanted to do was wield that gavel against anyone. And yet, to his everlasting regret, he had used it against the dogs.
Oh.
And though he had done everything by the book, and though the law had said he had committed no crime, his heart continually testified to the opposite.
Yeah, you gavelled a dog.
To be sure, Duncan had led countless dogs to the bay, where he had shot them like vermin in front of their ears. And it was only when he was alone and surrounded by their ghosts that he would admit to himself that what he had done didn't feel so right, and that maybe, just maybe, these dogs weren't the dangerous beasts or the diseased rats his captain had made them out to be.
Yeah, you're not in the story Old Yeller, dude.
They were something else. They were friends.
Yeah.
They were family members.
Yeah.
They played with children, entertained them, and kept them safe.
Yeah.
They warned against approaching wolves and polar bears, and even snowstorms. And more than anything,
okay, yeah, sure.
they made sure no hunter ever got lost in a blizzard, unlike those unreliable iron dogs or snowmobiles that broke down in the middle of nowhere and left a trail of black smoke across the cold, white, endless expanse. No iron dog ever led someone out of a blizzard. The same could not be said of the dogs. The dogs he had so heartlessly destroyed.
Oh.
But in those days, when the production of the first commercial iron dog commenced, there weren't many challenges to the law, and so Duncan certainly tried to convince himself that he was doing the good and lawful thing for everyone. And while it's true that the mind might not make the difference between what is right and what is lawful, the heart certainly does. The heart, it is often said, doesn't lie. Nonetheless, Duncan found ways to trick himself and ignore the appeals of his heart. He told himself these dogs weren't like other dogs, and he actually believed his lie for a few months. But as time wore on, he very quickly realized that these dogs were, well, like the dogs he had known back home. Knowing this made it harder and harder for him to fall asleep. And
You're
soon
a monster,
he started
dude.
to hallucinate and see all the dogs he had
Good.
shot.
Good. Be haunted
At
by your
first,
crimes.
It was just one. Then it was two. Then a dozen.
Oh, no.
Then a dozen became 100.
Yeah.
And 100 became 1,000.
These dogs were
1,000
atomic
dead
dogs.
dogs howled and stared at Duncan every night,
Good.
preventing him from sleeping, from dreaming, from thinking, preventing him from living the life he had once known.
Good.
Everywhere Duncan went, there they were, the dogs, looking at him with those eyes, those pleading, confused eyes, wondering what they had done wrong,
Yeah.
or how they had failed their family and friends to deserve such a cold and indifferent end.
Yeah.
Truth is, Duncan couldn't escape those ghosts any more than a dog could escape its own tail.
Exactly.
Wherever he
That's
went,
a good line.
there they were, following him, reminding him of all the lives he had disrupted and destroyed with that gavel. One evening, Duncan sat in bed, holding his aching head in his hands, staring at the decaying dogs sitting all around him. They watched him closely as he tried to fall asleep and howled or barked every time his eyelids began to slip. Trembling with fear and exhaustion, Duncan murmured he had done nothing wrong and that he had acted in accordance with the law and that they should just leave him alone. But the dogs wouldn't leave him alone. They just stared at him in silence with those eyes. Eyes that reminded him of his own dog. Anguished, Duncan lurched from his bed, screaming at the dogs, telling them he needed to sleep and that he wasn't going to feel guilty for doing his damn job.
This motherfucker owns a dog and he's out killing other people's dogs?
Or feel guilty for doing what the law required him to do, what the law said he had to do.
I'm a straight up monster.
The dogs suddenly stirred anxiously about the cabin, with their heads down and tails between their legs. Duncan's screams grew louder and louder, and one by one, the dogs whimpered and whined for their lives like they had done when they had been destroyed.
Ugh.
Then, just like that, they vanished into thin air, as though Duncan had finally scared them away.
When
Duncan realized the dogs were gone, he collapsed into his bed and prayed that they should finally leave him alone. He just wanted his life back, for the dogs had robbed him of his strength and freedom, and even his sense of identity as a morally upright officer of the law.
Oh, jeez.
That night a storm picked up and blew all around his small cabin. Feeling a chill seep through his bones, Duncan rose from the bed, and he made a small fire in the iron stove as he remembered his first and only dog, Buster, a plump, yellow Labrador retriever with a black snout.
Aww.
Smartest, kindest, and warmest dog he had ever known. To Duncan, Buster was more than just a dog. He was his guardian, his confidant, his best friend. He was the brother he never had. He caught rodents, guarded against coyotes, and drove cattle on the farm. His father used to say a good dog was worth 2 or 3 farmhands, and Buster was certainly worth 4. Thinking about it now, he was glad that no one ever used the law against Buster, or any other dog in his town for that matter. To be sure, Buster wasn't as big or strong as these Arctic dogs, but he was quite the hunter, and had once even saved him from a wolverine. But what Duncan remembered most was that Buster used to curl up in bed with him to calm his anxious heart and help him drift away to sleep.
Until he gavelled him.
And now Duncan longed for nothing more than the undisturbed, soundless sleep of youth. And as he longed for sleep, the wind blew harder and fiercer through the cracks of his cabin. The fire flared, flickered, and snapped, casting violent shadows that seemed to tell stories. Duncan rubbed his eyes to make the hallucinations go away, but wherever he looked, the shadows took the form of officers and hunters shooting at confused and frightened dogs as a thick and unnatural black smoke began to fill the cabin. Duncan tried to pinch himself awake, but when he realized he wasn't asleep, he quickly shut his eyes and once again begged for the dogs to just leave him alone. He wanted one night of rest.
Nope, too
just
bad.
one night.
Nope.
His brain reeled with despair, and he began to hear the warped voice of his captain laughing at him, shouting at him, tormenting him, telling him the dogs were dangerous, aggressive, a definite blight on their future plans. Duncan felt madness clutching at the seams of his soul. He screamed that these were lies, all of them, and when he opened his eyes again, the black smoke was gone, and the shadows were once again meaningless shapes flickering about the cabin. But just as Duncan sighed his relief, he heard a sound. A gentle, scratching sound at the door. Then he heard a bark that sounded vaguely familiar. The bark came again and again, and it sounded like Buster. Duncan narrowed his gaze and cautiously approached the thick wooden door. The scratching stopped just as he placed his hand on the doorknob. He stood in silence for a long, tense moment. When the scratching came again, he quickly opened the door and caught a fleeting glimpse of yellow fur, disappearing beyond thick sheets of falling snow. Exhausted and confused, Duncan rushed into the churning storm in his undergarments and slippers, yelling for Buster to wait for him. Then he stopped suddenly when he realized he was being irrational. His tired mind was playing tricks on him. Buster had been dead for over 20 years. He had been hit by a car. And for a fleeting moment, Duncan remembered holding his paw on the side of the road, calming him down as his life slowly seeped away. He had never cried so much in his life. There was no possible way Buster could still be with him. Covered in snow, Duncan told himself the solitude was getting to him, and that he just needed one night of undisturbed sleep. He turned back toward the cabin, but as he turned, he realized he was lost. He couldn't see an inch in front of him in any direction. Cold and panic swept over him at once. He turned and turned as the wind howled and shrieked and whimpered. In the raging blizzard, he could only make out dogs. Ghostly dogs. Dead and decaying dogs. Thousands of them. Running around him, growling, howling, barking, confusing him. Duncan shouted for them to stop, and he tried to scare them off as he had done before, but the dogs grew faster and fiercer as though they were one with the storm. Duncan fell to his knees and felt the cold bite all over his trembling body. His face twisted in terror as each dog seemed to pounce out of the storm to take its turn chomping down on him with cold, indifferent teeth. He collapsed to his side in agony. A terrible numbness crept over him, not so much from the cold, but the memory of hurting all those poor dogs. He begged for them to stop, and then he did what he had never done before. He confessed his shame and begged for forgiveness.
No forgiveness.
At once, the dogs froze and stared at him with eyes that seemed to look straight into his heart. Duncan choked out that he was sorry, that he was truly sorry, and that even though he had done everything by the book, he had done everything wrong.
Yep, it was his choice.
He had done them wrong. He had done their families wrong, and he had done himself wrong.
He made that choice.
And as he emptied his heart, he heard a familiar bark as Buster suddenly emerged from the ghostly pack and stood before him. The dogs looked at Buster, then Duncan, then Buster again. A wave of peace seemed to wash over them as they disappeared one by one, and left Duncan with his guardian, his friend, his brother. And Buster curled down beside Duncan as his heart slowed to a stop, and the blinding white storm swept his life away as it had done to so many others. When Constable Duncan J. Smith didn't show up at the station the next day, his fellow officers searched for him and found his frozen corpse not 10 feet from his cabin. He was lying on his side with a peaceful expression on his face. One officer noticed that he had been running around in circles, while the others questioned why he had been foolish enough to leave his cabin in his undergarments in the middle of a snowstorm. The captain kneeled by Duncan's frozen black and blue face and sighed. Just as he ordered someone to cover the body, another officer panicked and rubbed his eyes, claiming he saw dogs all around him. He stumbled back and screamed for the dogs to stay away from him. No one saw what he was seeing, and the captain told him to stop making jokes at Duncan's expense. But the frantic officer shrieked in terror and swore that the dogs were real and that they were following him.
Wow. That's a hell of a story. Coming soon to DVD. Ghost Dogs. Wild. Alright, and here's the fifth and final tale, I guess.
Arcus.
2921.
Some civilizations collapse because they discover knowledge they aren't mature enough to understand. Other civilizations collapse because of natural disasters. And yet other civilizations get a little push, a little nudge, over the cliff. I have
Cliffhangers,
studied the
Price is
final
Right.
days of countless worlds, been through the memories of so many survivors, and I can say that the entity doesn't just corrupt and consume a world. It somehow taps into our collective fears and has a little fun. From what I've observed, the entity seems to take its time cherry-picking souls from a buffet of misery, while contemplating a perfect design of destruction as though an apocalypse was a kind of work of art, a kind of masterpiece. This, I realize, goes against everything I've learned about ancients back home, but I cannot deny that all the stories and memories I've been examining suggest a voluntary and not involuntary will to create and destroy on the part of this ancient. It's all speculation at this point, but the last realm that opened up in the basement allowed me to venture into Terra Arachna, where I
Spiders.
witnessed the fall of a world to massive spider-like creatures, monsters that could have only come from the entity.
A
Not
spider-like
wanting any
creature.
of those monsters escaping into the tower, I quickly etched a symbol into the basement door to make the realm disappear. Then, just to be certain, I opened the door, and all that was left of the apocalypse was a small, empty room covered in dust. But as I examined the room, I thought I heard a kind of chittering sound in the corridors.
Uh-oh.
I swallowed a growing lump in my throat and cautiously searched the tower to make sure nothing had escaped. I didn't find anything inside, but noises outside continued to disturb my sleep. And I'm sure I've seen things moving in the fog.
Ooh, okay. Dude, the Observer's gotta be a survivor at some point. Like, whenever they wrap this up, he's gotta be like the endgame prize, I feel. And then maybe have like some sort of spider creature as the killer. Maybe like the entity's, the entity. I was gonna say the entity's like apprentice or something. I don't know. But yeah, that was weird how they kind of shoehorned that dog story in between what happened with the spiders. Because like I said, they kind of, I wouldn't say cliffhanged, but they kind of just left the spider stuff. They kind of just left it off, and I guess surprisingly here they picked it back up, only to be interrupted by ghost dogs. And then he's just writing down thoughts about, possibly hearing a spider from the Terra Arachna world, and yeah, you definitely don't want those in the tower, it sounds like. The entities spawn, yeah, there you go. Yeah. I don't know, that just seems like that's what they're building up towards. And I don't know. If 10 is the last one, I really don't know how they're going to wrap all this up. Like, a small part of me wants them to keep doing these, but man, I don't know. I don't know. They gotta end it at some point, you know? But maybe they'll have like another, if they do another one, maybe they'll go off on some other tangent and things like that, or maybe expand upon some of the other worlds and things like that. So yeah, the previous, on Tome 8, the previous cutscene, well, not previous, but the one from the previous tome had the, like I said, the Observer going to that Arachna invasion and then just piecing out and then reading a comic book about it. That's what you saw in the intro there. Let's see what this one involves. Watch it be a spider, like, in the tower. Watch. Oh, he's like, fuck this. There's a spider in there. I'm out of here. Goodbye. Oh! No way. Spider-Man. Spider-Man. Radioactive Spider-Man. Dude, that's gotta be the killer. That's gotta be what it is. You get the spider thing for the killer, and you get him for the survivor. Oh, that's gotta be what they're leading towards. Man, oh man. Wow. See, would they do that? Would they actually do that? That's the thing that gets me. Me slaving away at these 9 tomes and then 10 possibly being the finale. Would they fucking do that? Oh, man, I hope I'm not hyping myself up just to be let down. Wow. A long time ago, again, I mentioned this in one of the other ones, how there's this crossover with Payday 2, and one of the masks you could get from it was like this weird spider creature. And this could have been something in the works for God knows how long. Man. I hope they do it. I hope that's the ultimate reward. You complete all 10 tomes and you get both of those guys unlocked. Like, you complete all the survivor challenges, you get the observer. You complete all the killer challenges, you get the fucking awesome looking spider dude there. Oh, that'd be great. And I also hope that it doesn't suck, whatever their perks are. I gotta say. Anyway. I could gush about that all night. But, unfortunately, this time around, that will conclude Tome 9. I'll see you for Tome 10, wherever you are. If you're on YouTube, that's great. Please like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. Tell me what you think in the comments. Meanwhile, on Twitch, we're gonna probably unlock Jonah because we have the 9,000 shards here. So we're gonna go do that. I'm also gonna turn this down, back down to here. Yeah, wow, dude. Oh man. And yeah, if you're on YouTube, I'll see you next time. I'll see you for Tome 10. Take care. As for the Twitch audience, hey, we'll still, you know, we'll hang around a little bit longer.